Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be taking a look at some more front mission model kits here from Square Enix. So I have taken a look at a set of these before, but it's been quite a few years, and in the time since then I've been acquiring a few more of the sets. So we did previously do a video reviewing set 1. Today we're going to be checking out Volume 2, or Volume 2. Here you can see what's going to actually be in there. I have also Volume 3, 4, not 5, and Volume 6. So I have a few more sets that we're going to be taking a look at, so hopefully you guys will be looking forward to that. But I figure it's we're past due for kind of coming back to this series of model kits here, front mission mecha models from Square Enix. These are a little bit pricey, but really cool, and they're not necessarily all that big too, so definitely going to be something more for like people if you're really a fan of these designs, or just if you're really a fan of front mission or collector, you know, you just want something different to build. I really like these kits just because they're quite unique. But like I said, I did do a review of Volume 1. If you missed that video, you can go back and check that out. We're going to be checking out Volume 2 here today, and then Volumes 3, 4, and 6 we'll check out in the near future here as well. And that actually is pretty timely in that I saw that they just kind of announced that they're going to be releasing a couple of new sets, which are going to be comprised of units from the previously released sets. So it'll be like one of the new sets has 4 kits in it, just like these, but it's like 1 from set 2, 1 from set 3, and then 2 from set 5, something like that. Anyway, so if you guys are interested in these models, it is a good time for you to be able to get one of those newly announced sets that are going to be coming out. I think it's later this year. But anyway, for today's video, we're going to be checking out Volume 2, which has the Frost, the TIRAN, the ENYO, and the WALRUS. Let's go ahead and get into it for today's video. Now, it's going to be sort of like a premium Bandai box here on the outside, with it just being sort of monochrome, not really too much to see. I do like how the boxes are all basically shaped like kind of ammo boxes, which is kind of cool. And you can see some simple line art over here of the units. Like I said, Frost, TIRAN, ENYO, and WALRUS right there. Now, I did also get the bonus parts with this set, which is basically a single runner here, which gives you parts for making the Dazzler Claw, which is basically an option arm, I think. So we'll take a look at this in the review portion of the video as well. But inside here, we're going to have like separate boxes for each of the units. So we'll take a look at these in order. And so starting off with the Frost kit here, you can see it's still going to be pretty simple with just the line art over here on this side. Not really too much to see on the outside of these individual boxes either, except that on the back you do have a nice painted reference image there, looking really cool. And then you can kind of get a glimpse of kind of what's inside the contents of the runners, some more line art up there, and then kind of the weapon options that we have included with this particular variation. So there is text information up here as well about the equipment. This one has a hand weapon, a rifle, a machine gun, a pile bunker, a rod, tonfa. Shoulder weapon is going to be missiles. Backpack item is going to be another head, which basically just means that we have an additional head option, I guess, for this one. But anyway, inside this box is where we have all of our runners and instructions. Now, the instructions are also, like with the outer box, like with the inner box, the instructions as well are going to be pretty simple. So even though these sets are kind of expensive, you might think that you're getting sort of like a premium product. Not necessarily in terms of like the packaging, because the packaging is super simple. The instructions here, as you can see, just in black and white, just a single like A4 sheet of paper, printed front and back there with the parts list, and then the construction, no color photos, nothing in color at all. And if you thought, well, maybe that QR code takes you to like a full color or a more detailed instruction manual or something, nope, it pretty much just takes you to Square Enix's Structure Arts website here, so not really going to be anything too interesting. There are some more photos, but this is more about kind of the current stuff that's been announced and that's going to be coming out, which is going to be available. I'm not even sure if you're able to order from this website here in the US anyway. As for the runners, we've got runners P1 and P2 here in dark gray, which I believe are going to be pretty much shared between all the kits. This is basically kind of your standard joint parts and some connection parts for the weapons and things like that that are going to be shared amongst all the kits. We got those there in gray. We got hand option parts here on runner Z1, which is going to give us an option of open hands, closed fists, and weapon holding hands for the left and the right side. Here, this is going to be in this kind of main tan color. That's what we're going to have for the majority of the outer parts here on runner E1. You can see we have some really nice detail on these. That's one of the things that I really enjoy about these kits. They're just, they're small, they're expensive, but they're packed with detail. Here's runner E2, and then runner E3 we have 2 of, for some more parts, mostly for the arms and legs there. Lastly then, runner E4 is going to be a bunch of our weapons parts here, and as you can see, this is in a lighter kind of warm gray color, so not going to be the most colorful either, But again, a lot of really great detail on there. So here's the Frost all built up, super cool design. It's really great to build one of these kits again. They're really simple, just like in the construction, but just they look great when they're all done. I mean, as you can see, it's all in one color there. Doesn't really necessarily look the most impressive in terms of like color separation or anything, but just the details and the design on there is just really, really cool. You can really see the potential here for this kit. So really great to be checking these out again. Now, obviously the kits are not very big, just as a comparison to a 1/44 scale HG ARC-72 kit. Here, as you can see, it's pretty much coming up to about the top of the waist section there of the Gundam. And that's about it, with these guys only being about 9 centimeters tall, or about 3.5 inches or so there for everybody in the US. But I want to go over kind of like the base articulation on these, because that's going to be the same for all of the kits, so I'm not going to go over that for each one. And then we'll get into the weapons, as the weapons are going to be kind of like the main difference. Other than like the main kit's design itself, the weapons are going to be different with each one. They're all compatible too, which is great. But here in the midsection, you do have a ball joint, which will allow for side to side, forward and back movement. There, actually not too bad, more than you might expect for something like this. And then of course, rotation point here as well. The head is on a ball joint as well, and it's pretty much just going to have like side to side movement. It's not really going to go up and down all that much, but a little bit there. Again, not too bad, maybe more than you might expect, but I do really like the head design on this one too, how it sort of looks like a hawk's beak, sort of. Very cool. The shoulder will swing front and back there, and then you can also bring the shoulder armor up and extend the arm upwards to about 90 degrees perpendicular to the body. There we have rotation just above the elbow joint, and for our elbow joint, we do have a double joint that will give you a nice full bend there, so really good. And the wrist is just a ball joint there as well. Then on here in the hip section, the leg connections are separate, so they can move, like rock up and down here like that. You can also get a little bit of rotation there at the top of the thigh, not full rotation, but then this will obviously, because of the lack of skirt armor, come all the way up to the front like that. A double joint in the knee, just like in the elbow, gives you a nice full bend there. No separation of this knee armor, but I would imagine you could cut that apart if you really wanted to make that. As I think it looks pretty good just there as it is. The ankle joint will also be able to swing side to side there like that. Forward, really nice, and far back, not quite as much there. I think if we can move this a little bit, maybe that's going to be about it in terms of moving the ankle back, but really nice and far forward there, so you should be able to get like a pretty extreme stance there, something like that, while keeping both feet flat on the ground. So very cool. And speaking of the feet, on the bottom side of the feet, you got full detail here as well. So as you can see, obviously just lots of detail here on these kits. They are going to have some seam lines, like here on the front of the leg, you've got a seam line going right down the middle of there. Here on the shoulders, I wouldn't really say, maybe, I don't know if that's necessarily a seam line or just a detail line, but it's certainly quite the deep line going right down the middle of the shoulder there, through the middle of the bicep there, as you can see as well, and then here on the backpack. So there's a lot of seams here and there, some of which I would just maybe just kind of leave, as they just kind of blend into the detail. Pretty much these ones here on the front of the leg, maybe you might want to get rid of. Got a little bit here on the back of the leg as well, through this section where it's just sort of like a flat panel of armor. May want to get rid of the seams there, but otherwise a lot of this stuff just kind of, like I said, just kind of blends into the design. And as you can see, we've got a system of hard points here on the top of the backpack, here on the side of the arm, here on the top of the shoulders, where we can plug in some of our accessories. So let's go ahead and get into those now. So not necessarily a very common accessory among the rest of these, but you do have a head option. Not all of them do have this. But like I said, I really like the look of this one here that I've got on there, but the other one does look pretty cool as well. So kind of with it, whichever option you go for, you have a pretty cool design there for the head. And pretty amazing how small these parts are, but you can see even like to the small detail of like the little cameras inside the face there. So again, just really packed with loads of detail here for these. And you'll notice with this option head, you would not have the ability to rotate the head at all, as it's just sort of like built into the chest here. It's meant to just be stationary. So that's another good reason to use this head, but both of them I'm sure would look great on the kit. As for what is a bit more standard in terms of accessories is our hand hand option parts. So we've got a set of closed fists there on the kit, as you can see. Then we've also got a set of just open hands here like this, and a weapon holding hands for the left and the right side. And each of the kits is going to come with pretty much the same hand option parts there. We've also got a bunch of these connection pieces that we're going to have with each of the kits. And these are basically for storing and mounting the weapons onto the kit. So something like this will just plug into the hard point, or we have like these parts, which are often used just connected onto the backpack, which have a little hinge on them. So you're able to mount weapons onto there and they can hinge and move on the backpack like that. Or we've also got these sort of just mechanical connection arms here of shorter and longer lengths that you can use for attaching weapons and accessories onto the body. And then if you wanted to plug any of those holes on the kit and just make it into a detail, you have a couple of these detail parts here. One that just sort of looks like a hook attachment point, another one that just looks like a sort of like bolt cover sort of detail here. You can attach those in if you just didn't want to have this empty hole there on the top of the shoulder. For example, you could just pop one of those in there like that, and then now it's just a detail instead of being an empty hardpoint there. And now for our weapon options, you'll notice that each of these sets has no shortage of weapon options here. For our handheld weapons, we've got this sort of baton tonfa weapon here, which can just be held in the hand, and you can either have it, facing forward or facing back in a sort of, I think that's more sort of like defensive sort of pose. But anyway, we've got one of those. Kind of would have been cool to have two, to have one in each hand. But you do also have this like club mace style weapon here, quite long for the length of this, as you can see, compared to the size of the main kit itself. Pretty large mace weapon. Also got this pile driver weapon here, and this can be extended forward and back there, and you can also choose like the attachment point, whether you wanted to have this sitting a bit further back or a bit farther forward. This just plugs into here on this track, and then this is just going to plug right on here onto the side of the arm. And the connection is a bit loose. You may want to glue that just because this piece doesn't want to stay in there super well. That just fits onto the side of the arm here, acts as sort of a shield and a pile driver weapon there, 2-in-1. For ranged weaponry, we've got this missile pod here, and this could be attached onto the top of the shoulder. You could attach it onto the side of the arm if you want, or you could attach it to one of those included accessory parts here, and then you could have it attached onto the backpack, something like this. So when not in use, it's just kind of stored there on the side of the backpack, and then for when in use, this can be rotated around and used something like that. Maybe that's not exactly the right way that I've got it on here. Let me see. I think it looks a bit kind of goofy, something like that. I don't know, maybe just something like that looks a little bit better, but you can play around with it and find different ways how you might want to attach this onto the kit. It's kind of up to you. We've also got this large machine gun here, and this ammo box there on the side of it that can be attached onto either side. You can choose whether you want that on the left or the right, however you might want to use that. So if you're like dual wielding, you can have this in one side and a different weapon on the other side. The only thing is that you do have a hollow gap here, but just a little bit of putty or plot plate or something just to cover that inside of the magazine, I think maybe is the right word for that, and then that would be all good. Then we've also got this sniper rifle style weapon here, or long rifle, which does also look really cool. And again, the size is quite nice with it being pretty long. And here's where you can use these connection parts like this for storing the weapons, as they're just made to fit the size of the handle. So that could just plug into there like so. And again, you could just plug this onto the side of the backpack and have your weapons stored here on the backpack, something like that. So really great system of connection parts and accessories that we have for each of these kits. Taking a look at it now here in a few different poses with some of our different weapon options. There's a lot of weapon options there that obviously you saw. So there's a lot that you can do with these. The kits are small, but it's just really amazing how they're just packed with so much detail and so many options in terms of how you want to outfit them. Really, really cool, especially if you're a fan, obviously, of Front Mission, but then of course, like just it's also very similar to something like Armored Core or something like that. It's gonna have a very familiar vibe to that. Now, you don't have a hard point built into the kits to be able to put them up on an action base to have them in like a flying or jumping type pose, but it would be very easy to do so just by drilling a hole somewhere up underneath the waist section just to be able to plug this onto an action base, or using the little action base connector that just clamps around the waist section there. But as I think these are basically meant to be just sort of ground type stompy robots, you can just keep them on the ground. Either way, they're gonna look really good, which is, it's also amazing, aside from the other bits that I mentioned, the details and the accessories, just the level of articulation that you have in these small little kits is also really impressive and makes for some really nice posing options with them too. So really a lot to love with these kits. This one being the first of 4 for this set, it just kind of gives us an idea of what to expect, as like I said, a lot of this stuff is going to be repeated. The connection parts, the hand option parts, things like that are going to be pretty standard, but we've got different weapon options for each of them. And again, they're all compatible. So if there's like a weapon that you really like from one kit, it'll work with any of them in the line. So it's really nice to have that compatibility. Again, just kind of going back to these feelings similar to something like Armored Core, but you know, Front Mission also being a similar type of genre anyway. Moving on to the TIRAN, then you can see this box is going to be basically the same, just has a yellow color scheme on it here instead of red. And on the backside, we can see a built and painted sample here with that photo. And then all our contents inside, the weaponry, the line art, and the contents of the runners. Our equipment up there at the top gonna be pretty similar, but nice to have that for reference for people who, like me, who are just never really that familiar with the Front Mission game, really. I think I played it a little bit, but really not that much. The instructions gonna be pretty much the same here, with it just being a single page. There, front and back, parts list, all the instructions for assembly on there, very simple. And for the runners, like I said, going to be very similar with runners P1 and P2, here in dark gray being all of our parts for the frame and joint type parts, connection parts, and then no separate runner of hand parts, as those are going to be here, as this one has kind of more like claw type of hands, as you'll see. But here we've got runners F1, F2, and F3 in that same kind of tan color for all of the exterior kind of armor parts and everything. There's runner F2, and then once again, runner F3 we have 2 of, 4 parts for the arms and legs. And F4 is going to be our weapons parts here, once again in a light warm gray color. So 3 of those weapons going to be just a single piece each. The one kind of grenade launcher weapon is going to be 2 halves. You'll have to stick together, but otherwise that's it for this one. All right, so here's TIRAN all built up. Love how like froggy it looks. I don't know, just from like the shape of like the front of the torso into those inverted legs and large feet, just kind of looks very much like a mecha frog in my mind. I don't know, but still, with this one, once again, we just have tons of detail in there. Gotta love the shape and just unique design for this one as well. Because it's a little bit different, not having like a traditional head, and with the hands also being a little bit different, our accessories are gonna be slightly different with this one, while giving us a lot more awesome weapon options here to check out. So let's go ahead and get into those. So with the articulation and hardpoint system being pretty much the same here on this one, I just want to skip right to our included accessories and option parts for these 2 little circle bits here on the front. You have 3 different options for those, whether you want to use these ones with like the little line in there, these ones that look a bit more like a little sort of vent detail, or the third option is just like this flat circle detail like that. Any of the options actually look really nice, and this one in particular would look good if you stuck a little photo etch, like circular photo etch part in there for some additional detail. But I do like the look of these, just kind of adds to the frog face sort of look on the front of here. Around here on the back, we can add our sensor unit, which has a really cool design to this, even details on the underside. This just plugs right here onto the back like that. And that is, again, a really cool accessory here for that. For the hands, we don't really have like a closed fist option. You just have these, which are meant for holding the weapons. And then you have an option of just some open hands here for if you wanted to show it like grabbing or something, or anywhere reaching, or just having these open hands, which are much more like just claw hands, different from the typical like humanoid hands we have for most of the kits in the series. But we do have option parts for making the hands into machine gun hands. So we're going to remove the hand out of there. Instead, we're going to plug in these gun barrels, and then here on the side of the arm, we're going to plug in this kind of drum magazine just onto there like that. And then it's meant to be machine gun arms. Sort of looks almost more, because it's like quite a large barrel on that looks a bit more like a grenade launcher or something, grenade launcher arms or cannon arms or something. But anyway, you've got 2 of those, so you can make that for one of the arms or both if you wanted to turn both of them into gun arms. But I think leaving one arm, at least one of the hands, as a manipulator hand to be able to hold some of our other weapon options is probably a good idea. We've got the same array of different connection pieces here that we can use for mounting our different weapons and accessories onto the kit there, as well as the little detail parts that we can use to plug up some of the hard points on the kit if you want to use some of those. And then for our handheld ranged weaponry, we have this grenade launcher here. So this has just the main handle, and then it also has a secondary handle up here at the front. That doesn't move or anything, but you should be able to get a 2-handed grip on this without too much issue. With the articulation that we have with these kits, they can actually do that quite well here for some of these weapons. So there's that. We've also got this sort of AK looking machine gun here as well. This one is just a single piece, so there's not going to be any seam line or anything on it. There is going to be a bit of a mold line, whereas the grenade launcher was 2 pieces put together, so you do have a seam line on that. With this one though, it's just a single piece, so that's nice. And again, lots of great detail on there. We've got a shotgun style weapon here as well. Once again, this one's just a single piece, so you have a mold line down the middle but no seams to remove, and that looks really cool like that. Lastly, this one, which looks to be like some sort of like a flamethrower style weapon here, so you really kind of have the full range of, you know, shotgun, flamethrower, machine gun, and grenade launcher. So basically any type of weapon that you might want to give this, you've got it. And again, with everything being compatible between the kits, if you did want to take this one and turn both the hands into just the gun hands, and then you obviously wouldn't be able to hold any of the handheld weaponry, you could just give some of those other handheld weapons to some of the other different kits in the series. And again, with this one having a pretty unique design to it, with it not having a head and having those inverted legs on there, is just a really cool design, quite the unique design. And it does have a couple of seams on the leg parts in particular, and then obviously like the same parts of like the biceps and the shoulder armor. Like with all these kits, they're going to have a seam there. It's quite large though on those parts, and I think meant to just be kind of like a detail line. Really, in this case, the only seams that I would really worry too much about on this one is maybe just those ones on the lower leg. But other than that, I mean, just with the design of this one, this is going to look really cool in a color scheme. I think it would look really interesting with like a sort of organic camo looking color scheme to kind of like lean into the look of it being sort of like frog-like or organic looking with those rounded parts on there. I think a sort of blue-green sort of organic kind of looking camo scheme on this would look really cool. This is probably a good point to point out to you guys before we continue that all these weapons are also going to be very much in scale with like your 144 scale Gunpla kits. I mean, they're going to be not necessarily matching in terms of the design. This is like way too detailed and it just doesn't look natural at all with this Gundam kit here. But I would say these would actually probably work really, really well with the 30 Minutes Missions Armor Core kits from Bandai, just because they're in, once again, like a very similar size. I think the scale is probably different, but the size at least would match pretty well, and the level of detail. Up next, the ENYO here has brown for its coloration on the box. And going around here to the back, another really cool sample photo there. Our contents, the contents inside up there, like that. Again, all gonna be very similar. And the same thing here inside. The instructions, just gonna be a single sheet of paper here. Once again, like that. And for the runners, once again, runners P1 and P2 here in dark gray for the joint parts. Runner W1 for our hand parts here in tan color. And then in that same tan color here, runners G1, G2, and G3. So a lot of really awesome details there on those, runner G1 and G2. And then we've got 2 of runner G3 here. Lastly, runner G4 is just going to be, once again, our weapons parts. So you can see like option hands on this part right there. It looks like that would be for the knuckle weapon, and our parts for the big bazooka on there look really cool. So a lot of really cool stuff in that set. And so for ENYO here, it definitely has the more thicker, bulkier design with the just like armor styling too, also looking much more like it's just got like these thick plates of armor all around on it. So definitely going to be one that's well suited for some heavier sort of artillery style weaponry with this one. And we do have that big bazooka that comes with it, as well as the rocket launcher pod as well. So I think those are going to be some pretty cool weapons here for this one. But once again, just loads of detail on there and some cool option parts that we have for the head as well. We'll take a look at all those here in just a second, but also really cool the large back skirt that it has too, just kind of adds to the overall bulky look of the design. And so with this one, we've got all the same range of articulation, but for the head, we do have some option parts now, not an entirely different head in this case. Basically going to be an option for this part here on the side of the head. If you remove that, you can swap that here for this sort of antenna fin there at the back of the head. It's a small little part and doesn't want to stay in there super well there, as it just fell out. So I would recommend gluing that if you want to use that one. Alternatively, you can also choose which part you want here for the front top of the head, just kind of flat like this, or with this antenna fin on there, sort of similar to like a ZakuAurelius and like a commander fin on the Zaku head sort of. But I kind of like the look of this one, how it just looks like an additional little sensor there on the back of the head, which also does seem like it wants to pop out of there. So I might just go ahead and glue that just to make sure it doesn't get lost. But I like the look of the head like this, but it's cool that you do have those couple of options there for it. Again, just lots of really nice detail in there, even for like the sensors in the front of the head. For our hand options, we do have the standard set of hand options for this, including these closed fists, as well as a set of open hands and weapon holding hands here for the left and the right side. Around here on the back, we can plug in the turbo backpack, which is just going to plug into here like that. And then this gives us a couple of hard points there on the side for attaching additional weaponry or option parts. Again, other than that, we have the same attachment points here on the top of the shoulders and the sides of the arm there. And for attaching different stuff onto the kit, you have the same set of option parts here that you can use for attaching our accessories and weapons onto the kit. This does have an additional set of hand option parts, and that's like hands that are specifically molded in with this weapon, which I think is, I remember is like a shock punching sort of like weapon. But rather than making this as multiple pieces that would have been required to make like the hand separate, they just molded the hand together with this, and you do have a set of these for both the left and the right side, so you can have both hands having these kind of weapons in hand there like that. Additionally, here is the rocket launcher pod, which can be plugged either onto the top of the shoulder or using one of the connection pieces to plug it onto the backpack or anywhere you might want there on the kit. You got that. No option part for having like these doors open on the front if you wanted to display it as if it was actually like opened up and firing the rockets or something. As you can see, it's just that simple piece in there. So that would have been cool to have an option part for that, to have those opened up. Otherwise, you're just gonna have to mod that. We do have a smaller sort of pistol style weapon here. Not going to be very big or very intimidating, but a smaller weapon like this just makes me wish that we had a hard point here on the side of the hip. And I think you could like drill a hole like right there, and it would be a good spot to put like the connection piece to be able to mount the pistol here sort of onto the side of the leg or something. I think even though it is a smaller weapon, I mean, it still is going to be like fairly good sized compared to the kit itself. It's just much smaller than some of the larger weaponry like we have like for this assault rifle style weapon here, something like this, which is going to be pretty good sized there compared to the main kit. You do have that secondary handle, and that is actually a movable part on this rail, so that will slide back and forth for you to be able to do a two-handed grip on that if you want. And just as we've seen, the articulation of these does allow for you to be able to do a two-handed grip on most weapons without too much issue, so that's cool. Lastly, we have the bazooka. Now the main handle on this does move back and forth, so you can get this up over the shoulder without any issue. You will have a seam line on this, as it's just two halves put together there. So an unfortunate seam also goes through the back vents there. Not really ideal, but it does look like a cool weapon. And again, with a big bulky design like this, it needs a big weapon, and the bazooka is a really nice addition, I think, for this unit. Taking a look at this in a couple of different poses now, I almost wish that it had some sort of like even larger weapon just because of the bulky design, and having that like big backpack there. I think like some kind of large cannon, something sort of like the FAZ or like the Full Armor Double Zeta, to have like this large cannon which is connected onto the backpack and goes like over the shoulder and is handheld. Something like that would be really cool with a design like this, and it would be something that would maybe be interesting to try to scratch build or kit bash or something like that out of maybe some of the different weapons parts or something that we have, to try to make something like that. Or I guess something similar also to like the GPO2 Gundam's nuke launcher. Something like extra large I think would be very fitting for this big chunky bulky design. But again, this one, really cool details on there. It's gonna look really nice with some good weathering on there as well, just to like really bring out all the details between all the panels and all that. Some nice chipping and dry brushing in there just to kind of really emphasize the details on it. Just love the design on this one. And as I mentioned just a minute ago, but that back skirt design is also just super cool to have that on there. Just sort of looks like an exterior sort of like fan cooling unit there for the mobile suit as well, just because you can imagine it being like, because of the added weight of all the armor and everything on it, being like just like a massive walking tank, even more so than like the rest of the designs, that it would require additional cooling. You can imagine how that might make sense anyway. So really cool. Lastly then, for the walrus, kind of makes sense that it's in blue. I don't know, walrus, I think of kind of an aquatic animal, right? And blue is an aquatic color. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but here on the back side, once again, there's our reference photo. Kind of cool to have those photos to show what it looks like painted up. I just kind of wish that they weren't so dramatically lit, so you could actually kind of see the model a little bit better. But I mean, the photos look cool, I guess. Anyway, our contents here. and here, letting us know what's inside. And then you guys should have a pretty good idea what to expect from the contents of this one as well. Same type of instruction manual. And once again, dark gray parts here for runners P1 and P2 are inner frame joint parts. Runner X1 for these hand parts, and these hand runners, I should say, are going to be a little bit different. You can see like the style of like the backing part of the hand is going to be slightly different depending on the release. So this is one X1 being a little different there in tan color as usual though. Runners H1, H2, and H3 are going to be the rest of our tan colored parts here for the rest of the kit. So once you get these kits assembled, obviously they're not going to be the most colorful. They will require some painting, or at the very least just some panel lining to bring out all those beautiful details on there. But here then runner H4 are going to be our weapons for this particular set, and all the weapons too are also going to be interchangeable. We'll talk some more about that, but it's one thing that I really like about these kits. So all right, then finally here for the Walrus, another super cool design. I love the long toes on this one, from some really nice details on it as well, from I think what those are meant to be like the smoke launchers there on like the sides of the chest, the bars on the top of the chest there as well, those chest vents. I mean, just a lot of really cool details for this one, with the fact that the armor on like the front of the legs and the back skirts do sort of look a bit like skirt armor. I guess this is maybe like one of the more Gundam-esque sort of looking designs, still very vaguely just because of the like very wide and thick proportions on it, but still a super cool design, and one that we do have of course some awesome weapons and accessories here for, so let's check it out. So I know I said with the first one that we don't have head options for all of them, but as you've seen, for all the kits that do have heads, we do have option parts for them at least. So with the first kit, we had, full option heads with the ENYO, and now with the Walrus, we've got option parts. So this one's basically for just like the front part of the head. You can choose which design you prefer. Actually, I might switch this up because I think I do actually kind of prefer this other one, but you can choose between those two. Once again, we do have a backpack attachment for this. Is going to be a jet backpack, so I guess maybe just to kind of help it to fly. Although I don't think, and I'm not really familiar enough with the series to know, I don't think that they do necessarily a lot of flying, but more so maybe just kind of like low flying, sort of hovering, something slightly more than hovering. These can be adjusted up and down, and that's it for those, but again, some really cool details inside there. We got our standard hand options, in this case a set of closed fists as well as open hands and weapon holding hands here for both the left and the right side, and then the same set of connection pieces that are going to be used for attaching weapons and accessories onto the kit when not in use, or when in use sometimes in some cases, as well as our option parts for plugging up the hard points, turning those into details if you want to use those. We got a pretty cool grenade launcher here that can just be attached into the top of the shoulder as it's shown in the instruction manual anyway, something like that, and then this is just going to fire as so. Again, you don't have any other option parts or anything for that, just a pretty simple but pretty unique design there for the grenade launcher. Then we got two different types of machine gun. This one is kind of more like a Gatling gun, but just in the manual anyway, it just calls them both machine guns. But this one, like we've seen before, the ammo here can be attached on either to the left or the right side. A little tight, but you can just remove that out of there and attach it onto whichever side you prefer here for that. And then for the big machine gun here, this one's pretty cool with the two drum design there on that. Going to be quite long here. As you can see, it's going to be coming up to about the same head height as the unit itself. And the main body of the gun is all one piece, so you'll just have a mold line there, no seam, but on the ammo drums, you will have a seam line going around those parts, as those are two parts put together there for that. For melee combat then as well, we've got this another kind of mace club here kind of weapon, just simple one piece there that can just fit into the hand, or you can use that connection piece to store it to the kit when not in use. We also have this shield here, which can be used very similar to like a Zaku 1's shield. This connection piece can be attached anywhere onto this track here, and then that's just attached to the forearm here like so, for use for defense or offense there if you wanted to bludgeon someone with the shield. So some pretty cool weapon options here for this one. And because of this one coming with a jetpack, it's definitely one that's going to benefit from using it with an action base, something to just get it up off the ground to kind of illustrate the fact that it's actually flying along. Again, though, that's not included. So if you did want to use an action base with this, you would have to use that clasp action base connector like I'm using in this case, or you can just drill a hole into anywhere in the hip section or into the center of the backpack or wherever you might want to attach this onto a base, just to have it up in an aerial pose to show it flying. And it's definitely going to look very cool, especially like amongst the set. I really like this set. As for the bonus parts here, what we get is just once again kind of simple little instructions one singular runner here, which is going to be all the parts basically for making a new arm, as this is for the first production run bonus Dazzler Claw. Here on the back side, it's just going to show you how to build that, and you're just going to swap it just like a kind of normal arm part. Nothing really too fancy, but we'll check that out here. It's pretty cool, and basically just going to pop off and replace any of the arms on any of the kits that you might want to use this on. Some cool parts here, like this thruster bell here at the back, I guess, to sort of help to kind of like blast the arm along to pulverize your opponents. This main claw here on the outside moves, but the inner one does not move, unfortunately, so you can't like really open up the claw entirely. That's kind of unfortunate. But you do have an option part for putting this onto the opposite side. If you wanted to make this either left-handed or right-handed, basically you can just swap these parts around, just flip these parts around, just essentially like that, and then just pop out the claw part here and put this one on in place, and that would make it for the left side rather than the right side. Otherwise, this configuration is meant to be here for the right side like that. It's just got the 2 claws, not 3 there, unfortunately. But anyway, really cool bonus parts to be included. I believe with set 1, it was a bonus weapon that we got, which is cool, but we obviously, as you've seen, we've got loads and loads of weapon options between each of these. I think each one of the kits comes with like 4 or 5 different weapon options, so we got plenty of those. Having option parts like this to change the actual kit itself is pretty cool. Now, just to kind of talk about it a little bit more broadly, just because it really comes with a nice array, and I feel like that the sets are kind of planned this way, but it's kind of a nice spread of having this one, which is more sort of like a flight unit. We had like a particularly heavy unit with the ENYO. With the Frost, we had a good sort of like general unit that had a mix of short range, like melee weapons and long range combat weapons. And then with the TIRAN, we had another kind of more specialized kind of unit there, having like the sensor disc on the back and a wide range of weapon styles with that one as well, but then also having the ability to kind of change the hands themselves into weapons. So anyway, a really nice variety amongst the set overall, and so it's really, really fun to be able to get a set like this and not just basically feel like you're building 4 of the same kit, although the construction of them is very, very similar. So it does, I guess when you're putting them together, feel a lot like you're building 4 of the same kit, sort of. But it's nice though when they come together, like having them grouped as a set, it does feel like each one has like a different specialty purpose, sort of, and that's always really cool. That said, obviously some paint on these is going to go a long way. At the very least, some panel lining and top coat, just to like help to bring out all the fantastic details that you have with these. The details aren't like lost on the fact that they're all one color. You can see the details pretty well on them, but definitely painting them is going to help differentiate them as well, so they're not just all one shade of tannish brown kind of color, which, to be fair, it looks nice, but these are definitely going to look much better once you fully paint them up and like paint in all the little details and everything on them. I typically, like, I don't know if I would like this as sort of aesthetic look on some other different like Gundam stuff. It's almost like too detailed, but I feel like the amount of detail looks really good on these designs. I've seen some really awesome painted builds where like they really went in and, you know, detail painted all the little details in like different colors and different bits and metallic colors and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it's just not typically something that I think I would like on other series of kits, but on these kits I think it does look really good. So looking forward to painting some of these at some point. I don't have any plans to at the moment, just have too many other things on the table, but I do have 3 more sets of these to build and review for you guys, so I will try to get to at least the next set in the near future. But that's just about going to do it here for volume 2. Thank you guys so much for checking out the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like. If you want to check out some more awesome mecha model kits, not these unfortunately, but some more awesome mecha model kits, you can find at usagundamstore.com. Plenty of cool stuff on there, from kits to tools, paints, supplies, and all that good stuff. So check out that link in the video description. And as always, guys, thanks so much for all of your support. Make sure that you're subscribed if you're not subscribed yet. As I said, I will be reviewing volume 3 sometime in the near future. Stay tuned for that. But for now, hope you guys are all having a great day, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye bye.